we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glasser. Come right back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, each and every day, in fact, on Facebook, but also as well, you can catch the latest news and trends in pop culture twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts and on radio stations all over the world right there for you at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Plus, the Lakers Fast Break, where we cover the NBA and the Lakers every single day, seemingly, right there for you on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's been extremely popular, and I truly appreciate all the support for that show as well. Plus, Game Source, where we cover the latest news and trends in video games. Of course, the great guys at Domination Sports Nation. You got to go ahead and check out what they're doing today, talking about the world of sports at Domination Sports Nation, plus all of our good friends all over the world that go ahead and check us out. If you can support all the good stuff that we do, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been gone for a while. We wanted to wait for some news to come down, and in the past, I'd say 5, 7 days, we've heard a lot of news coming down because a lot of players have changed locations, change teams because it's that time of the year for the NFL. It's the silly season per se because all these guaranteed that are not guaranteed contracts, a lot of these players get out of their contracts and go move on to somewhere else or a team that says, you know what, we do not want you any longer. You cost too much. We go ahead and just renegotiate the contract, get you on a buyout, say we don't want to pay you no more. So there's a lot of free agents out there over the past few days that have been changing teams. We're covering it for you here today and how this might affect your fantasy football teams come this fall. Gets a little taste of an NFL season preview per se because it gives you a little bit better idea what some of these teams are up to and how they might be looking later on this year. And here today to talk about who the winners and the losers so far of NFL free agency is a good man indeed, along with his son Dom. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Domination Sports Nation. It is Chris Sardieri. And Chris, great to have you back. We said after the Super Bowl we would be here for this show, the NFL free agency show. And sure enough, there's been a lot of action to talk about so far in NFL free agency.
Indeed, there has. It's great to be back. Thanks again, Gerald. Dom sends his best. But yeah, to say the least, some people labeled this kind of an underwhelming free agent market in 2023, but I think it's just as exciting as ever. Once Derek Carr signed with the New Orleans Saints, I felt like the dominoes
Yeah,
fell
what
fast and furious.
Yeah, the dominoes, like you said, they fell indeed once Derek Carr changed teams. I still think there are some teams out there that really didn't do much to help themselves behind center with a quarterback. Not sure I'm loving what the Raiders did in regards to Garoppolo moving over there, but you got him on not in a super expensive contract. So if it doesn't work out for you, you can go ahead and jettison him rather quickly. So that's not too bad, I guess, for them. But your thoughts on this, my friend? Who starts to stick out with you as far as NFL free agency? Like you said, it's always about which quarterbacks are changing teams, but there's a ton of players changing teams that help solidify a lot of these teams. I look at this as a point in time where these teams right in the mediocre area, these 8-8 teams, these are actually 17 games now, these 8-9 teams, these 9-8 teams, these teams that are just a little bit short of being a really good team, can, if they hit the right notes in free agency, they can really do some damage in the fall.
Yeah, a team that sticks out to me are the Miami Dolphins, and I think their biggest acquisition was not free agency, but via trade, getting Jalen Ramsey from the Rams in exchange for a third rounder, I believe it was. Now, still, the question is going to remain: is Tua Tagovailoa completely healthy and free of concussions going forward? We won't know, but they made one of these interesting below the radar deals. They signed Mike White, who was all the rage in the Meadowlands with the Jets last year when Zach Wilson was benched. I think he's a nice backup quarterback, a lot more of an improvement than, say, they have Teddy Bridgewater last year when
Mm-hmm.
Tua went down. So I think they're going all in. I mean, we already know they have the pieces on defense. They have fantastic wide receivers. I think this is a team they see. Look, maybe the Bills aren't as dominant as they were in previous seasons. This is our chance to strike in the AFC East.
I agree with you on that. I think they did rather well so far in NFL free agency. I know that a lot of people are pointing to the San Francisco 49ers, who, yes, they did get another quarterback to go ahead. One left, one came in because the quarterback situation due to injuries is kind of tenuous. But it's on the defensive end. I really think that they made strides for a defense that was already pretty darn good.
Absolutely, and I think they're set on that side of the ball. Even though they lost D'Amico Ryans, he became the head coach of the Houston Texans. I don't think the defensive side of the ball will miss a beat. The question will remain: who will the quarterback be? Will Brock Purdy be healed in time for the regular season? If not, is Trey Lance ready? Is Sam Darnold a serviceable backup? So I think they got even stronger on that side of the ball. They maintained their offensive firepower. Just the quarterback's going to continue to be the key area of concern as to whether this is a Super Bowl contender or not.
And that's something I think that we have to look at because I really think that if barring health, they are still really, really a good team. And I think they could be a Super Bowl favorite again, barring any health issues that's concerned. Another team that I really liked what they did on that side of the ball. I really think that Detroit is another team that really solidified a lot of its depth. Now, Detroit is usually not the marquee free agent destination, but I think they helped themselves quite a bit so far in NFL free agency.
Absolutely. They shored up their defensive backfield. And I think, too, the fact that they've got a high first round pick courtesy of the LA Rams and the Stafford for Goff trade, I think this is going to bode well to the Lions and a team looking forward. I think, like you said, one of these teams hovering in that 500 zone that's poised to make a move in 2023.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it indeed to see what the Detroit Lions can do. I know obviously there's been a lot of long suffering Detroit Lions fans that are there, but could they start really talking about playoffs and a good playoff run with this team again with all the solidification that they've done there over the course of the past few days? I think yes, and I think that's something that people need to look into as far as some of the things that they've done to shore up, especially the offensive end of the ball. I think they've really done a lot of good things there. Who else stands out to you as a team that maybe it could be under the radar in some of its signings? Because again, these players that are not superstars for the most part by any stretch of the imagination, a lot of these players just they go under the radar. They go back and forth, and they switch teams because again, the NFL, the way it does its contracts, nothing is really guaranteed out of except maybe what a portion of usually whatever contract that they get. They can easily be bought out at any point in time. Who is sliding under the radar as a really good team that's done well in NFL free agency?
Well, based off of one key signing, I really like what the Cincinnati Bengals did. They poached the Kansas City Chiefs of free agent left tackle Orlando Brown, paid him a handsome sum, but what they're saying is we're going all in. We've made it to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship the last 2 years. We know this is the last year of Joe Burrow's rookie deal before we're going to have to back up a truck and pay him a ton of money, most likely the most high, he'll probably be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history at that point in time. So that was a problem last year, and even in the Super Bowl against the Rams, when Burrow's under pressure, he can't do his magic. He can't get the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and Brown played really well with the Chiefs. And even if it's just one of these deals where he plays with them for a year or two, I think they've gone all in. And I would argue they've got to be one of the, if not the front runner in the AFC right now.
What about the New England Patriots? I know we've been remarking about the New England Patriots being an afterthought the past couple seasons. It's been kind of amusing to watch to see how far they've fallen since Tom Brady has left the team. Your thoughts? They've made some nice pickups so far this offseason. I think that again, they're on the radar. I don't see them, you know, growing by leaps and bounds and by any stretch of the imagination, but I see some good pickups so far for anybody out there that's a fan of the New England Patriots.
I agree. Juju Smith-Schuster had a nice run with the Chiefs and getting a ring there, and then Gesicki, the tight end from Miami, that really surprised me. I don't know if under this new coaching regime he fell out of favor or what, but he's become a nice option, touchdown catcher at the tight end position. And then two, I mean, not even a player, the acquisition of Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator, who's been in New England before. The Patriots under Belichick decided they'd have kind of this revolving door, two-headed monster at coordinator of former Giants flop of a coach Joe Judge and former Lions flop Matt Patricia, and that didn't work out this year for Mac Jones. So I think right there, that's another key acquisition that people are maybe not paying as much attention to.
And that's something I think that we need to delve into more is these key player changes. Not, a lot of these teams are usually judged on the full slate of free agents that they get in or the free agents that they lose. Is there any one particular or two particular players that you saw move to another team that really think that can really help a team towards a good playoff run, or at least even get better per
Yeah.
se?
So I mean, look, I've got the hat on. I don't want to appear biased, but just objectively, I was surprised the Giants gave up a third round pick for Darren Waller. I like him as a tight end. A lot of question marks. He hasn't been healthy, hasn't been able to stay on the field, but if he is indeed healthy and motivated, the Giants have not had a pass catching tight end in I don't know how long. So I mean, I think that could help Daniel Jones right there. And then one that kind of surprised me, and then when you look at what happened, they're fitting in some pieces around him. Miles Sanders going from the NFC champs Eagles to the Panthers. I mean, Panthers did all right with Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman at running back once they traded Christian McCaffrey last year, but I think that gives them a solid number one running back in that backfield. They pick up Adam Thielen, who the Vikings cut as a salary cap casualty. And then, too, the blockbuster trade to trade up to go to number one, traded with the Bears, who had that pick previously. And they're going to go all in on a quarterback. If they hit that right, Frank Reich works well with quarterbacks as long as they're not Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan. So I think long term that could also position the Panthers for a nice rebound and let's face it, a very weak NFC South.
That's true. And I think it still will remain weak, which will give the Panthers the opportunity to go ahead and even post McCaffrey, still find a level of success because, like you said, it's a division that's not going to be, or at least not expected to be, very strong this coming year.
Absolutely, and let's face it, a lot of these divisions are going to be pretty wide open. Even on the AFC side, you look at the AFC South, a lot of change and turmoil, whether it be with coaching, quarterbacks, you name it. The Jacksonville Jaguars, there's a move that wasn't technically made in the offseason. It was made last year. Guy was suspended for gambling on NFL games. Former Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's going to be a nice pickup for them. They kind of expanded their depth at the wide receiver position, but I think that can only help Trevor Lawrence and what I think will be a big third year for him.
Once again, it's Inside Sports Fantasy Football. We're covering the best and worst in NFL free agency. So far, Chris Ardieri from the Domination Sports Nation has been very generous with his thoughts on who did well so far in NFL free agency. Some names stood out. I don't see any big names per se that have changed teams that I think will just change the landscape of the NFL per se. It's more like I guess in some cases, maybe just getting some really solid players to fill that lineup for your team out that will hopefully make them better for the most part. But there are other teams that have decided to really sit on the sidelines during this period of time, and then others that are just making some moves that are just making you scratch your head. Your thoughts on some of the teams that are not doing so well so far in NFL free agency?
The Atlanta Falcons, I mean, they've cleared a
Knew you were
lot
going
of
to
caps.
start with that.
Yeah, cleared a ton of cap space, and Lamar Jackson's out there. There are a number of other free agent quarterbacks that were out there that have gotten snapped up. I thought that made the most sense as a landing spot. I mean, you could say what you want about Jackson and what he wants. I know he wants a lot of guaranteed money, a la Deshaun Watson, but despite the injuries, the guy's what, 26 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He's played on a Ravens team with each year declining weapons on offense, and he's put up numbers and gotten his team to the playoffs. What are the Falcons waiting for? I mean, Desmond Ritter, you kind of did a reboot last year with Marcus Mariota. Ritter played some, really didn't show much. I don't get what they're doing there. And, Arthur Smith is an offensive coach, and we all know coaches don't have a very long lifespan in the NFL. So if they really want to evaluate how he is as a head coach, they've got to get him a quarterback, and they haven't done that.
And they have young talent at the running back and wide receiver positions that I think could really benefit from a player such as Lamar Jackson. And like you said, a team that has so much cap space, not utilizing it on a big move like this just kind of makes you shake your head.
Complete head scratcher. And like I said, if there's a division that can easily be won with, signing a big name or a franchise quarterback, it's the NFC South. And I believe that's what the Saints think they're doing with Derek Carr. I'm a bit skeptical, but at the same time, with the way things are shaking out, they might very well be the favorites in that division at this point in time.
Anybody else that stands out as far as being disappointing? I know that here in Las Vegas, we're not exactly doing backflips over, Garoppolo, Jimmy Garoppolo becoming the new guy under center for the Las Vegas Raiders, but also as well, just the moves that we've got trading away Waller, who was a very much a favorite and a part of what we were doing here in Las Vegas. But like you said, injured but extremely talented. Kind of makes you wonder exactly what's going on here in Davis land here in Vegas.
Yeah, I just think that's Josh McDaniels and his familiarity with Garoppolo from his days with the Patriots. And clearly, that's another team I thought could have been in on Lamar Jackson, but apparently not. They want to do the Band Aid fix. Look, Garoppolo is a serviceable quarterback. Again, his problem is staying on the field. So you've got to have yourself a quality backup in Vegas. And then, two, you've got Devontae Adams. You traded for him, you gave up a lot, paid him a lot of money. In the prime of his career, you want to utilize your talents, and I'm kind of skeptical of the if the Raiders are even doing that. So we shall see there. And then two, the Jets. Let's face it. I mean, they put all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. Haven't pulled the trigger on this yet, and I feel like it's almost hamstrung them. Yeah, they went out and signed Alan Lazard, which feels like it's another one of Rodgers' alleged list of demands or players he wants, going back to Randall Cobb with Green Bay. But if they're putting all their eggs in the Rodgers basket, I'd be a little bit leery. So if they do end up making that trade and not having to give up a first round pick, more power to them. But at the same time, it's a year to year contract as far as I'm concerned. Rodgers is going to go to his house in the woods and his quiet, reflective solitude, just solitude, and sitting there and thinking about what he's going to do from year to year. So maybe they get him this year, but next year we're going to go through this whole song and dance again.
Let's talk about the Super Bowl teams, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Both of those teams are either looking to go ahead and obviously defend their title. And in the case of the Eagles, they're looking to go ahead and see what they can pieces they can find to go ahead and put them over the top, or at least get them at the top, because it's very difficult in the NFL to stay consistently at a Super Bowl level year in, year out. Your thoughts on what both have done so far in NFL free agency, staying quiet for the most part from what I'm seeing, but losing a couple players here and there that it might be key to the future going forward, like you talked about already earlier in this episode.
Yeah, while I like that Carolina got Sanders because they needed a running back, I think it was smart for the Eagles to let him go. He's nearing that upper 20s age when running backs start running out of gas and get worn down or banged up. So to pay him what Carolina did, I think was a smart move to let him go. They kept Bradbury at corner. He had the controversial holding penalty in the Super Bowl. So I think that keeps their defense relatively intact. Jason Kelsey's agreed to come back for another year. There was some thought he might retire. I think that core that surrounds Jalen Hurts at wide receivers intact. Devontae Smith on a rookie deal. AJ Brown's locked up. I think they've made their moves there. They're going to kind of lay low, and then you've got to realize too, Hurts is going to come up for a big payday. So you don't want to risk anything with the cap now, and you've got a team that is a Super Bowl contender, if not the very least playoff contender in that winnable NFC East.
Anything else notable to you as far as NFL free agency? Like you said, wasn't the most star-studded, or how should I say, just eye-opening NFL free agency I've ever seen. Kind of people doing ho hum and yawning memes and whatnot. I can't say that they were too far off on it, or people focusing more on their NCAA tournament brackets per se. But for the wise that actually looks into this like you do, my friend, is there anything else that sticks out to you so far in NFL free agency?
Gonna put my Giants hat on. Well, like I said, it's on, and I was really bummed to see Julian Love played really well at safety this year for the Giants. Went to the Seahawks for what I thought was a pretty manageable, I believe it was 2 and 12 million is the deal he got. Excellent player. I think if Adams comes back healthy in the secondary, that's only going to bolster, which was a really nice defense up in Seattle this year. They extended Geno Smith. If they do indeed take that high pick they got from the Broncos and pick a quarterback for the future, you've got Geno locked up to kind of groom him and at least get another year or two out of him. So I really like, similar to what the Lions did, not overpaying, getting pieces where they need them, and keeping their eye on the draft because they've, let's face it, fleeced the Broncos and have that nice pick, which could really get them a difference maker up in Seattle come the draft.
You really think Geno Smith is the man in Seattle? Do you really think he's going to be someone that you think is going to be long-term answer there in Seattle? A lot of people are still kind of wary. I know he's, obviously getting the contract that he did, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, he had such a great season," but it is just one season for a player who has never before really lived up to his potential.
I personally don't, but then I look at what quarterbacks are making, including my Giants, Daniel Jones, which is another. Yeah, we could have a whole podcast on that, Gerald. What they
Yeah.
paid him for a guy that's middle of the road quarterback, but relatively speaking, I guess in terms of cash and guaranteed money, it's not all that bad. I think he's a nice story. He really comeback player of the year, and everyone thought his career was all but dead, especially when he was a backup for the Giants and took broke Eli Manning's consecutive game starting streak once upon a time. But I don't. But at the same time, you need him for another year. I think he's serviceable, but part of me feels as though Seattle's got their eye on a quarterback of the future, whether it comes in this year's draft or next, or maybe free agency. Hard to say, but I think given the way we thought about the Seahawks this time last year after the Wilson trade, they really turned things around in a hurry. So they're in a far better position than what we thought they were this time last year.
Once again, it's Chris Lardieri. He and his son Dominic Lardieri, host the Domination Sports Nation. Before we talk about what these guys are talking about on that great show, the last thing is for us at fantasy football is, I guess, a question I would have for you is, it's still March. It's NFL free agency. For the NFL hardcores like you actually really study it hard and follow exactly what's going on. Dominic as well. But for people that are playing fantasy football on a regular basis, why do they need to keep in touch with what's going on with NFL free agency?
Yeah, because there are going to be guys that change teams, and maybe we're a bench warmer, a fourth wide receiver on one team that are now become the number two receiver on another team, for instance, or someone who was part of a running back by committee is now the main focus with another team. Those are sorts of things you have to pay attention to. I'm going to go into the weeds now. I didn't even realize this until the other day. Matt Gay, the excellent kicker for the Rams, left, signed a big money contract with the Indianapolis Colts, and you think, wow, good for him. Well, if you dig a little deeper, he's going to play predominantly in indoor stadiums in his division or warm weather stadiums. So I think that bodes well for his kicking numbers. And then, two, he was remarkably accurate. I want to say somewhere above like 90%, 92% maybe in his time with the Rams. And essentially it was an indoor stadium. So I think that bodes well for him. Now, am I going to go, oh, I got to get Matt Gay in the eighth round of my draft? No, but that's someone when you're thinking about like, all right, Justin Tucker's gone, Harrison Butker's gone. I need a kicker. Oh, there's Matt Gay, and I think there's a lot of upside for him in Indy. If Indy drafts a young quarterback or whoever they plug in to replace Matt Ryan, doesn't look like they're going to be offensive juggernauts this year, which also bodes well for a kicker.
Once again, it's Chris Lardieri. He and Dominic Lardieri host the Domination Sports Nation. So, with no woof 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 doghouse that's available today because there's nothing to go ahead and, you know, as far as the NFL is concerned, give an underdog on. What are you guys talking about at the Domination Sports Nation?
Yeah, we've been on a bit of a brief hiatus post Super Bowl, but we are going to be back very soon to talk March Madness. I mean, this is going into it. I had no idea. It didn't feel like there were many clear favorites, even though there are always favorites. But, another 16 seed, Fairleigh Dickinson, New Jersey, out of my native New Jersey, uh, beating number one seed Purdue, only the second time in history that's happened. You look at another Jersey team, the Princeton Tigers made it to the Sweet 16. And then, in terms of teams that we thought would do well, we've got an excellent Gonzaga UCLA showdown in the Sweet 16 in your backyard in Vegas is coming Thursday night. So I think while there's not as much name recognition player wise or team wise that you'd see in previous years, the Dukes and the Kansases are out already, but I think it's going to make for an interesting Elite Eight and inevitably Final Four. With just such a wide open year, and teams seem to be so close together in talent level. I think that makes for a lot of interesting things. And then two, we got the NBA playoffs right around the corner. March is almost over here, so begins the long process of trying to crown a new NBA champion over the next 3 months.
There you go. It is the Domination Sports Nation. Please go ahead and check it out today. As far as some of the back episodes, then you'll be rewarded with some new episodes coming up very soon, wherever you get your podcasts. But my friend, it's been great hearing from you. Glad to get an update as always, especially for those again, just trying to get the jump on trying to get the beat on who's doing what for fantasy football later on. We will be back, I believe, in April when the NFL draft comes, that 4 day long drawn out saga that they want to do now. It just seems so mind numbingly boring. You see the individuals at the various houses with their families just so ecstatic when they get selected. Yay, 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 and all that. And yeah, my gosh. Well, it turned out right because if you'd have stayed awake for the entire full draft, you would have realized you were watching a future star quarterback being chosen as the last pick in the NFL draft last year. While I doubt that happens again, my friend, it still will be interesting to talk about it when we do a special episode next month.
It will, with so many quarterbacks at the top of the draft board. It looks like here. That's always interesting. Enough to do that awkward handshake with Roger Goodell on the stage. So that was the one bright spot there. But yeah, I was telling Dom recently, like the way the old NFL draft would be, it'd start at 9 a.m. Pacific on a Saturday and finish, late afternoon Sunday. They knocked it out in 2 days, and none of this hype and celebrities coming out and or former players introducing the pick. None of that shtick. We all know it's Goodell's mo, but I kind of miss it in that way. You knock it out over a weekend. You get what was it, like the first, and second round, or first, second, and third round all done on Saturdays. So that if you don't really want to watch those late rounds, you can get along with your day on a Sunday. But yeah, to start it on a Thursday night and they just drag out that first round like nobody's business. But what do I know? It gets great ratings still, right?
Yeah, that it does indeed. I know we'll talk further about who did what in the NFL draft. I just don't think there's enough good quarterbacks that just really pop out to me this year. It's just a situation where everybody, all these teams need quarterbacks, so they're just going to go ahead and grab who is ever available. But I don't see a whole bunch of these quarterbacks really standing out this year as much as I have in years past.
No, I don't either. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be thrown to the wolves right away. Even in Carolina, we know they're going to take a. I wouldn't be surprised if that quarterback doesn't start the entire season. Maybe they groom him, give him some time. Even with the Texans, I mean, could very well be if Bryce Young, for instance, ends up there. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start right away.
That would, I don't know. Is he tall enough to actually be able to go ahead and succeed? I mean, there have been short quarterbacks before that have actually done well in the league, but these guys get bigger and stronger and taller and faster. It's really harder for an individual to be as under 6 feet like he is to be able to succeed in the NFL. It's getting a little bit harder for that to happen.
I agree. And, everyone talks about Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. I think those are predominantly the outliers at that height. The person I would point to now is Kyler Murray. I mean, not very tall. That was a knock of him coming out in college. He make unbelievable plays with his feet, but that's not good for his physical health, and that's not good for his long-term prognosis or whatever you want to call it as an NFL pocket quarterback. He's got himself a ton of money, but I wonder if the Cardinals are regretting that extension now. Guy, besides the fact he's coming back from a knee injury, he fades fairly fast, and you got to be able to take that pounding and hang in the pocket. And you nailed it, Gerald. Some of these defensive ends are like taller than most quarterbacks and fast as a running back. So the league is changing.
Absolutely, indeed. But hopefully, we'll be here as it changes to report on you what's going on in the world of the NFL, plus also as well give you the tips you need to help you win your fantasy football league. I mean, both of us did well last season, so hopefully we will have that same kind of success this upcoming season. But Chris, it's been great having you aboard. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
No, I mean, I guess in addition to this Rodgers debacle, I think it'll really be interesting to see how the Lamar Jackson saga plays out. The Ravens were pretty shrewd to put the specific franchise tag on him that they did. I don't think there are any teams out there, other than the Falcons, of course, which we'll scratch our head over that are going to be in the market for Jackson. So will he have to accept that tag? Will he and the Ravens come to some sort of agreement over maybe a shorter term deal with more guaranteed money? Not sure, but I feel like that's the last here in free agency before we transition into full on NFL draft mode.
That's for sure, indeed. But once again, go check out Chris Lardieri along with his son Dominic Lardieri. They're the guys behind Domination Sports Nation. Please go ahead and check it out today, wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, of course, my shows, the Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, and of course, everything that we do right here each and every time out at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.